There we go. Good. So having done that, having let us know what we're expecting, my intention therefore is now to move us formally into this session, Pennyworth. And it's still all about in the presence of getting to try and find out how we are going to navigate this conversation, but more from a personal perspective. There's going to be quite some bit of typing in this session before we dive deeper into the content of the storm, so navigating our financial storms. And I have one more question. Well, again, really, it's not really a question, because we've all talked about really wanting to manage our wealth, grow our money, have a fantastic relationship with our money. Then it is good to have a reflection as we complete this sentence. This money that you want to manage well, that you want to work for you, that you want to grow, that you want to be in a healthy relationship. What does this money give you the ability to? And then complete the sentence. This money that you want to develop a healthy relationship with, what does it give you the ability to do what? So money gives you the ability to, let's sample those comments by way of just establishing the big connection or relationship insofar as money is concerned and the reason why we really want it to work well for us. What does this money do for you? What does this money do for you? So that we can address this from a very objective point, but again, that which is very personal to you as an individual. All right. Chat's coming in. I like this. Caro says, money gives me the ability to, okay, life balance. Ruth Kamunyi says, meet the needs of my family and secure the future of my children. That's very profound. Very profound. Okay, more comments coming through. More comments coming through for Carol to maintain a work-life balance. Yes. Okay, Ukadem, buy time. Money helps you buy time. For Linda Kemunto, it's all about choices and freedom. David Frederick, freedom to walk away from toxic situations. Make time useful. Oh, and live a life. Carol says, money gives me the ability to make wider choices in my life, where to work, when to work. Sorry, when to work. That largely talks about freedom. Jos Kanyari, the ability to live comfortably. And I can see majority of us are really talking about freedom. That if we had probably money enough, then all our problems would be answered. Beautiful responses coming through here, good people. And for me, what I just see is, or what this immediately reminds us is that money is rarely just about money. For many people, money represents indeed a peace of mind, freedom, dignity, options to move from one to another, and even family security and hope for the future. And that is why financial management matters. Not simply because we want to earn more, but largely because financial well-being affects a lot about our state of mind, our relationships, our stress levels, our confidence, our leadership, productivity, and even the quality of the decisions that we make every day. And that's important. So Pennyworth, just for me to go in a little bit to help us define Pennyworth as I put this conversation into context and perspective, is simply to the fact that Pennyworth, it's all about being able to define it from three principal perspectives. It has a very interesting meaning historically. And traditionally or historically, Pennyworth referred to the amount of value you could obtain from a single penny. And that's where the phrase pennyworth came from. And that is powerful because a penny once really held real value. But today, when we look at Pennyworth, the phrase speaks to receiving meaningful value from what you have. These monies, these pennies that you have, how much value can you receive from it? And I think that connects beautifully to financial stewardship because true financial well being is not necessarily about having the most money, but largely about using what you have wisely, intentionally, and sustainably. And as we look at that, then our ability to be able to engage in this session is to probably bring us to the place where financial well-being is not necessarily about how much we have, but just how wisely again and how intentionally you get to steward it. So today's webinar, ladies and gentlemen, is hosted by Pennyworth Consulting. And Pennyworth Consulting is a professional service firm focused on helping individuals, groups, and organizations make informed financial decisions, strengthen financial performance, and achieve sustainable growth. What stands out about Pennyworth's philosophy is its focus on these three important pillars. Educate, where Pennyworth seeks to make finance practical and understandable. There's the pillar for equipping that speaks all about providing tools that people can apply immediately. And the place for empowerment, where Pennyworth seeks to help people build long-term financial confidence and well-being. And that is the spirit that we also sincerely hope will be reflected very much in today's session. And so, without further ado, I know we are all really eagerly waiting for us to be able to unpack the storms or the financial storms, be able to learn how to navigate the storm successfully, and be able to see what that definitely means for us in being able to manage our finances effectively. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to invite none other, or to help us invite this conversation, I'm going to invite none other than Tesha Mongi. And we are really privileged to have with us Tesha, who's a highly experienced finance and operations professional. And Tesha brings on this call today more than 20 years of experience helping multinational corporations and international development organizations achieve strategic goals through financial management, operational excellence, and financial system strengthening. Of course, beyond her technical expertise, she is deeply passionate about financial education and helping people build healthier financial futures. So, without much ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us all give a rousing welcome to Tesha Mungi, who I will be able to invite, therefore, to share with us a few pointers around what she's been able to prepare for us today. So I'll stop sharing the screen just so that I can invite Mongi, Tesha, and you can all be able to see her on screen. She is able to speak to us. And you can see claps and flowers of affirmation coming there. Tesha looking all bright and smiling, ready to take on this session like the pro she is. So Tesha, I officially hand over to you. Thank you and welcome. Speak to your people.
Asante sana, Nick. Asante for opening this session for us and for ushering us up to this moment. I am really grateful. And to everyone who has logged in this morning, I know our Saturday mornings are usually for sleep, for other things, but I am really glad that you are here and you have joined this conversation. So, we are going to have another poll just in 1 second, as I also share my screen. All right. So our poll question for today is how long can your household survive um, comfortably without an income? How long? So we have option A, more than 6 months, option B, less than 6 months, option C, more, apologies for the error there. Option C was supposed to be more than 3 months and then less than 6 months. So apologies for the error, but it's more than 6 months, less than 6 months, 3 months, and so I hope we can figure that C and D means more than 3 months and less than 6 months. So I guess, Nick, you will let us know as soon as the poll is complete, because from this side, I'm not able to see the poll.
Don't worry, Tasha. I have that on standby. And just in case you're joining us from a small device, or maybe you had minimized the window for this Zoom session where you could only hear the audio, I'm also officially launching the poll so that if you can maximize on that, the poll will appear on your screen. And then now you can easily, quickly pick whatever works for you. And I can see guys are already in. I know there are those of us who had already typed on chat. It still doesn't hurt for us to quickly be able to poll. Tasha, numbers are coming in fast and furious. It's as if we are electing a new president or a governor.
Yes, 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 I can see them flowing in.
Yes, and so far, out of 96 participants, 47 have already participated. So we've already just crossed the 51% threshold mark. I wouldn't want to reveal the polls as yet. Let me give time for a few more people to respond. As many of us as can, uh, hapa, oh, here's where we say tuko kadi. It's as if we're voting for someone. So we just want to be able to capture your aspirations on what you think. Ndindi, I can see you laughing there. It's okay. We can also be able to, in this session, react with whichever emoji you feel is appropriate for the comments that are coming through. And I think we are moving on very, very well. Oh, this is quite interesting. Things coming in. Dorothy Mbaiza, I've seen your emoji reaction right there. I think we're moving on very well. The numbers have slightly stopped. We're at 59% participation. The poll is still on. Before I end it, I would just want to read how comments are coming through, Tasha, even for your information, even as you pick up on the next slide. 16 participants are saying they could only survive for less than 1 month. Comfortably, that is without income. Those who would do less than 3 months are 25%. Those who would do less than 6 months are at 23%. And those who would do more than 6 months are currently standing at 37%. And I think that's a positive kind of an indicator right there that if major income stopped coming in today, 37% of us are likely to live comfortably for more than 6 months. I think that's a good indication. I can see the poll has stopped. Numbers are not moving, but I'm glad that we are currently at 61%. So I believe from a statistics perspective, that gives us good numbers to work with. So allow me, as I end the poll, just to read the numbers finally for you, Tesha. Those who would survive less than 1 month are at 16%. Those who do less than 3 months are 25%. Those who do less than 6 months, 23%. But those who would survive comfortably for more than 6 months are at 37%. Ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of this poll question. Back to you, Tesha.
All right. Asante sana, Nick. And it's so surprising. It is surprising what the polls reveal. So here are some statistics from the 2025 World Bank Global Findex report. And this report was asking how, it was asking Kenyan households. So this survey was carried across the globe. And for Kenya, particularly, these figures are from Kenya. So for Kenya, we see that 47% can do more than 2 months. Then 17% can do about 2 months. 25% about 1 month. and 11% less than 6 weeks. So here we had 16% of us saying that less than 1 month. And really, it looks like these figures are actually representing where we are. The people who said they can do more than 6 months is 37%, while the statistics here show 2 months. Then it shows that as a country, we are in trouble, because if it's just 6 months, if it's just 2 months, only 47% of the population can survive for more than 2 months, then we are in trouble. And the rule of thumb has always been that we save for 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months has always been the rule of thumb. But now what has happened in the past few years, starting with COVID, has revealed that 3 to 6 months is no longer enough. We now have donor agencies that are withdrawing their funding that has been with Kenya for over 6 decades. There is the Ukraine war, that, global issues that affect us. And so it means that we need to now start figuring out, as a Kenyan population, what we can do so that we can increase our savings, so that we can improve the quality of our lives, so that we can survive the storms that life brings. And I want to share my journey, as this webinar is titled Navigating Financial Storms. I want to share some of the financial storms that I have gone through over the past 2 decades. And so in 2007, I went through a debt storm. And for those who have heard my story, you will bear with me as I share it one more time today. And in 2016, I went through what I would call a sabbatical storm. And in 2025, there was then a retrenchment storm. And so I will stop my screen so that you see more of me and less of the screen. So I'll stop sharing for a moment, even as I share my journey. So as you've seen, in 2007, I went through what I call a debt storm. So 2007, that was 5 years after campus. I had worked for 5 years then, and I started feeling very uncomfortable with where I was in life. You see, my peers, and I've seen some of them in the room here, thank you for attending. My peers had 4 things. They had one spouse, they had 2 children, they had a 3-bedroom house and a 4-wheel drive. And for myself, I had nothing to write home about. And so I started to wonder, how can I accelerate my pace so that at least I can be at par with them? Okay, maybe I couldn't buy a husband or children, but I could afford to get a 3-bedroom house or a car. And so I began to look around at what was available, look at the strategies. What can I do so that I can get to where John and Joneses were? And so when I looked around, I found these investments. They were very attractive. So there was Desi that was in Ngumo. There was Clip that was in South Sea. And there was Sasanet that was in town. And so for the people who do not know what I am referring to, these were the Ponzi schemes that were there around 2006, 2007. They existed a little bit before that. And so I thought, oh my goodness, these schemes, and I had actually seen and had had testimonies of how people had made so much money in these schemes. They were getting 10% return, 12%, 15%. I mean, it was ridiculous. And this return, I am saying it was monthly, meaning that if you put in 10,000, Bob, you would get, for example, Sasanet would give you 12 checks, 12 post-dated checks of 1,000 each, meaning you'd get 12,000. So that was 120% return. And I said, aha, I have found it. And so this will be my investment. And so I did my calculations. And I said, what is the minimum? The very minimum I can live on. And so my very minimum was, so based on my minimum, I went to the bank and I got a loan. At that time, the bank was giving unsecured loans. So as long as you had a pay slip in a good company, then you would get a loan. And within 2 weeks, my loan was processed. Now, I want to share very openly, and I feel sometimes we do not hear we do not hear enough bad stories, and so we think that failure is absolutely bad. But you know, they say those who fail than learn more than those who have not experienced failure. And so my loan was for 800,000 shillings. I was doing the calculations of what 800,000 shillings would be today. And well, I didn't do the calculations. I went to AI, and 800,000 shillings would today, its present value would be 2.8 million, between 2.8 million and 3.1 million. So that is what I lost. Remember, I was a young girl. I had just finished school. It was 5 years after campus. And so I had not yet lost the 800,000. I had taken out a loan of 800,000. So the bank takes the 20,000 and that's their charges. And so I have 780,000 in my bank account. And this is what I would do every morning. Every morning I would, before I got into the office, I was working in town at that time. I would go to the ATM, look at, ask for my balance. I would see 780,000 and I would think, oh my God, I am so rich. And then I would print I would print the receipt that shows what your account balance is. And so for that week, every morning I would go to the ATM, very excited about how much I had. But remember, I had taken this money for investments. And so I decided that I would put that money into Sasanet. Why Sasanet? Sasanet was on the same street as the office that I worked, and I had seen it. The office was right below the salon that I used to go to when I was in town. And so the only thing from that 800,000 that probably I purchased was a bed of 8,000 bob that I got from Karioko. That bed is in a room here. And so the minute I put that money, good people just believe it. The minute I put that money, Central Bank closed every single account. The accounts of Desi, the accounts of Clip, the accounts of Sasanet, every pyramid scheme was closed that day. That day I lost 800,000 in less than 24 hours. And so I remember when I was watching news, it is when it occurred to me that I had been conned. And so this is what I decided. And when I realized that I had been conned, I said, oh my goodness, I have been conned. And I said that I would never, ever, ever pursue that money. I know the government did call people and said, take your papers to Nyayo House. I knew there was not going to be any recourse, so I went, but I did go to Nyayo House. I think it was somewhere on 7th or 8th floor, and there were millions of us who were there taking our paperwork. But I remember telling myself that this money is never coming back, so forget about it completely. I want to repeat that I was a young girl, equivalent to what the richest man of Babylon says, the inexperience of youth. And in that moment, so what comes with being conned is the term called financial embarrassment. I was extremely embarrassed. How? And I was embarrassed for these reasons. I was an accountant in training. Allow me for 1 minute just to switch off my phone. Sorry about that. And so I was an accountant in training. And I was not working for just any firm. I was working for the Big Four. Being conned should never have happened to an accounting accounting student. I was a part qualified an accountant working in a prestigious firm. How on earth would an accountant be called? It would have been someone else, someone who has done another degree, not an accounting degree. The second thing was I was a firstborn. I have seen my people in the room, asanteni sana for logging in. And I was a firstborn. And as a firstborn, you're brought up to be responsible. And here I am in debt. And my sister really suffered during that period because I was constantly borrowing money. And the third thing, I was a Christian. Still am a Christian. And I just wondered how could I be the tail? The Bible says that we shall be the heads and not the tail. And here I was now languishing in poverty. And in that situation, I thank God for ego. I know women probably, I don't know what the statistics are, probably don't have so much ego. But I thank God for ego because I said, I must get out of this situation. And so in our offices at Londro House, when people would ask me, Tasha, why are you not going for lunch? I would say, I'm keeping figure. And so there were many things that were happening at that time. But some of the things that were happening was I am seated in the office. I get a message from the bank. Please deposit 1,000 bob because the check you issued is going to bounce. And so I'm running around the office to borrow 1,000 bob. By the time I go and deposit it, so that the check goes through, then the bank charges me 2,500 bob, which I do not have. And that kept on happening a couple of times. And at night, then there was the night part. The night part, I could not sleep. I could not sleep at all because I was like, how could I have been conned? How could this have happened to me? I thought I am someone who is intelligent. I thought I am someone who, who has some level of wit. I thought a lot of things about me, but at night I would panic and it was just complete panic. And I would just wake up and just say, God help me, God help me, God help me. And this one night I woke up and for the first time I thought, let me budget. And so I began to write my expenses because I was tired of the bank saying that we are going to charge an amount to you. And so I said, let me budget. And so I began to budget that night. And I took an exercise book. I had this big Karatasi brand exercise book, and I began to write down my budget. And then I looked at the loan, and then I said, if I'm able to meet my minimum payments every single month, then at least I'll survive. And at least the bank will not come to HR and say that there's one of your staff whose loans are, bad. So I did not want that kind of embarrassment. And so I was just managing the situation. And so I began to budget. And so I began to say, okay, so if this happens this month, then at least I'll survive. And so mine was to meet the minimum payments, survive the month. Then I thought, why don't I look at this loan and see when it will end? So I plotted a 5-year transactions schedule. And every time I panicked at night, I would wake up and say, at least I have paid for 2 months. At least I have paid for 4 months. And I would encourage myself just to continue. In the process, I decided to move from one budget to 12 months. Then I did a 15-month budget. And so for that 15-month budget, it just helped me to look at the areas where there were leaks, areas where I could save more, policies that, I decided, let me liquidate these policies because I am in such a mess. I need to come out of it. I remember one of the things that happened during that time, a good friend of mine came to me and said, a check of mine is going through tomorrow. Please help me with cash. Salary had just come in and I knew, okay, this, she'll pay me back tomorrow. I gave her all my salary. And what happened? She never paid the money back. And so that that month was complete fire. I mean, that it was not even just a month because when someone goes with your month's salary, you're just it's just a lot. But budgeting, just budgeting consistently, looking at where my money was going, changing my lifestyle. I know it was very difficult because now remember, I had said, what is the minimum I can live on? And so I had only 200 bob per month for hair. That is what my budget looked for. And women and ladies in the room, you know, we will say that our hair is very important to us. So blow dry, 100 bob every 2 weeks. I could no longer buy the clothes I liked. I was someone who was addicted to earrings. And you know, when I would go to the office and realize, oh, I didn't wear earrings, I would just dash and buy earrings. So there was no more buying earrings. And life was difficult. But the budget helped me because I just would look at it every night. Every night, every week, every month, every year, and 3 years down the line, the loan that had a tenure of 5 years was complete. Complete, complete, complete. And I got into a space that is called plenty. Plenty. It was so unbelievable. I remember when I made my last installment, I called my sister and then I called her. And then she kept on telling me, do you know you have called me? Do you know you have told me that your loan is finished? But yes, my loan was finished. And that year, I remember, the following year, I remember having so much money because you see, I was paying this loan every single month. Um, I was paying this loan every single month, but now there was relief. And so, where do I take this money? And because of budgeting, I got into a system where I was now just saving and saving and saving. And so, I was able, for the first time in my life, to, because I had sat with someone and she told me, you know, we do all our transactions cash. We buy our vehicles cash. We do this cash. And I thought it was, how do people do things cash? But when she said that to me, I found myself in a space where I was able to buy my car cash. A very small, tiny Demio, but I was able to buy it cash. I was able to import it. I was able to pay for import it. I was able to pay the Japanese. I was able to import it up to Mombasa, pay the duties, brought it up to Nairobi. It cost me 498,000 then. And I had that car for 10 years. And I drove it for 10 years. 10 years because I said, this car will remind me of the journey. And I don't think I need to change my car in 10 years. So I do have a different, I remember when year 10 reached, I was like, oh yes, finally. Because my colleagues who used to tell me that this Uber that you drive, uh, because I'd had it for quite a long time. And when 10 years reached, I said, okay, the 10-year mark has reached. I can now, you know, move to something different. And those are the things that have happened, even as I have gone through, you know, as I have gone through the journey. The other thing that happened, so I moved from a situation of debt. I moved from a situation of debt, and my second storm, 9 years later, was what I call the sabbatical storm. The sabbatical storm, or how the sabbatical came about, I am someone who worked throughout my campus life. In fact, I think I had been working from when I was born. You know, when I got into school, because school is also work. So primary, secondary, high school, secondary, university. In fact, in between university, I was taking a French course. And so I was always working. And when I got to campus, I worked all my campus holidays. Um, and then now I left campus on Friday, and on Monday, when I completed now my graduate studies, left on Friday, and on Monday I was at work. And I worked and I worked and I worked. And after 15 years of working, I just felt I was exhausted. And so I decided, and at that time I had just changed jobs, and I thought, It doesn't look good on my CV as an accountant to have left a job in 6 months. And so I decided this 6 months, uh, okay, I can't leave within 6 months because I am tired, I am fatigued, I cannot work, I am feeling unwell. And I just can't live like that. If I live like that, then I will have to depend on my parents. Again, being a firstborn, sometimes we feel like there are things we cannot do. I'll have to then again depend on my sister. And so I said, you know what? Let me plan my exit. So I worked for another couple of months. I had intended to work another 6 months so that I have 1 year, but I completed 14 months with that organization. And what I did at that time is I began to save. I began to save for the season ahead because I did not know how quick I would be able to get a job. And so what I did was to get a post-it note, write my monthly saving targets for the next 9 months, because at month 3 of that job, I decided, no, I'll not be able to make it. And so every time I met my saving target for the month, I would tick my, I would tick that month, that month. And by the time I was getting into the sabbatical season, and I remember I had had several conversations with my mother, and the final conversation, I told her I am resigning on Monday. And she told me, if that is what you have decided, please know that we will support you. And you're most welcome to come back home. I didn't think that going back home was a good idea after staying home long because of being in debt. But I was really grateful that there was that support. And so what happened was when I now got into the sabbatical season, I told my landlord at that particular time, who happened to be my cousin. So I told my landlord that, I have left work. I am taking a sabbatical. At that time, sabbatical was something strange in Kenyans, to Kenyans. In fact, a friend of mine told me, she sent me an email and said, I wish you the very best in your unorthodox ways. But for me, I just needed that mental break. And so, I reached out to my cousin and I said, uh, I want you to know that I will pay the rent. For this year that I plan to be out for 1 year, I'll pay the rent for the 1 year. I'll meet the rent because now people become nervous. Even the person who probably comes to clean your house becomes nervous and wonders, how will this person pay me? And so when I left, after 1 month, I paid my cousin a year's rent because I just wanted that peace of mind of staying in that house without thinking about rent. And the thing about storms is no one knows how you live, and you can go through storms. No one knows whether you're eating ugali mayai every day. And I realized that you can eat ugali mayai every day and you're still healthy. You can eat ugali sukuma wiki every day and no one will know. And I was able to survive that season. I was able to get my rest, and I was able to, thankfully, during that time, the supply of jobs was, enough to meet our needs. And so I went back to work. And so during that sabbatical season, what it taught me again was just the discipline of saving. Remember that my debt season taught me about budgeting. This other season taught me about saving. And so in addition to budgeting, then I picked up the discipline of saving. Now, my third storm is the redundancy storm. I worked for USAID, and life at USAID came to an end last year in August. And USAID was abolished on September 2nd, 2025. But a similar situation had happened a few years back because I was working for an NGO. And what happens in NGOs, our letters always have this line that you will have this job subject to availability of funding. And so I remember the first time we had a redundancy situation, I just went and I decided, let me look at my expenditure. And when we were told that we were going to be made redundant, and thankfully they had told us 7 months in advance of the project ending. And so I said, I need to figure out what are my expenses? What are my expenses? And I began to track my expenses every single month. So I was tracking, and for 3 months, I tracked my expenses, and then I had an idea that this is how much I spend on a monthly basis. And so I was able to know this is the very minimum that I can live on, and this is the maximum that I can live on. And then I was able to realign my things. Remember, during my debt season, I kept a 15-month budget. And it's over 10 years I have kept a 15-month budget, a budget that I track regularly. It's only in this season of redundancy. Redundancy also comes with its issues, where you just feel like, I don't feel like doing some things, but I still track it. I still do my monthly accounts. And so during that initial redundancy, this is the pre-2025 redundancy, I began to track my expenditure every single month. And so I was able to know what to do. I was able to adjust. One of the adjustments that I made, and that was in 2019, every single blog that I was reading was saying that there is a recession that was coming, that global economies and central banks around the world will need to figure out how they will manage their economies. And when I kept on getting these signals, I said, because at that time I had moved to a little bit of an expensive place, then I said, what is all this information I am seeing? I'm seeing it in blogs, I'm seeing it on Instagram, I'm seeing it on news, I'm seeing it on The Economist. And so I decided to move. Believe you me that I moved on February 2020. Little did I know that those signals were the signals of that COVID was coming. And as soon as I moved in March of 2020, then the pandemic was announced. And so I was happy that I had been able to cut down my budget during that time. And again, this redundancy issue, then I began to think, how can I invest? And because we spent a lot of time at home, I would call people. I was very scared. I was like, oh, it feels like the world is ending and things like that. But because I'm someone who is very passionate about financial literacy, I called a couple of people. One of the people I called worked in central bank, and he took me through treasury bills and treasury bonds. And I thought, aha. And the next day I was at central bank opening my CDSC account ready to invest. And so I began to learn. And during that period, I began to learn about bonds and things like that. And so now this redundancy period became a period where, because of that line of subject to availability of funds, I started saying, I need to invest. I need to invest because if I'm made redundant, then I need something to fall back on. And so in January last year, when Trump signed the executive order, I did not wait for any other direction. I just began to now look at my finances. Thankfully, every January, I look at my finances for the whole year, and I was able just to figure out where things are and what I need to do. And so it became a place where I was just learning about investments. I could say a lot about the different storms, but let me just go back to share my presentation. That's a bit of my journey. But let me just finish the session really with some of the key lessons so that you don't just listen to me talking. I think I can really talk about different things. But here, let me just go back here. But I hope we are together and that you're learning something even as I share my story. You can give me a thumbs up if you're learning something, or you can also give me a thumbs down if you feel like, hey, hii ni maneno mingi. So yeah, those are the three, the three storms that I talked about, my debt storm and how I got, being conned and how I got out of debt. And there are different situations for different people. It could be you took debt and the investment just went wrong. So different things for different people about debt. Mine was really as a result of greed, wanting to keep up with the Joneses. Sometimes a loan, even a good debt can actually turn into a bad debt, especially if you're made redundant. My second storm was the sabbatical, where I felt that I could no longer work. And there are things that can make us incapacitated. So that can be a storm in our lives. And the third one was the retrenchment storm, which I am currently going through. And different learnings from it. And a lot of us, especially in the development world, this is our current storm. And the lessons from that storm, as I have mentioned, is just to keep the minimum payments moving so that you're in good standing. At least if you pay the minimum, no one will harass you. And so you can move with that. Then I have also talked about budgeting, and tracking every cent makes a huge, huge difference. Sometimes you get 100,000 and you can't account for it. You get 10,000, you can't account for it. 1,000. But when you budget, you're able to account for your money. And I say when we are in crisis, it's crisis is a place where we are unromantic about the things we want in life. In crisis, we are very clear that I need to get out of debt. When we're in crisis, we are not thinking that I need a new fancy car. And so these are the times where we can make good, we can make good financial decisions. So apart from budgeting, then embrace the sacrifice. It's very difficult to change habit, but you can embrace the sacrifice. If you embrace the sacrifice, it will give you peace of mind in future. So I talk about, so I emphasize budgeting. Governments use it, organizations use it to do well. So even as individuals, we need to budget, and we need to write out our budgets. Whether it is on paper still works, on Excel, and nowadays we have so many apps. Then again, there is my lessons from the sabbatical storm. Plan and save ahead of an event. Please do not leave a job if you do not have a plan. Just let me put it in Kiswahili. Jipatie moyo, so that you say, by the time I'm leaving this job, at least I have a decent chunk to take me away, to take me through the journey that's ahead. Do not just leave a job without a plan. Save whatever you can. Sometimes we think that we will, when we fall into some big wealth, you get some inheritance. That's how you will begin to save. But small regular contributions will build this habit. And eventually you will build a fortune. I remember when I started investing in the stock exchange, I would buy, at that time, even getting 2,000 to buy stocks was such a task. It would take me maybe 6 months because I felt it was hard. But I got into the discipline of just doing it small, regularly, and eventually I've been able to build a decent portfolio. Then increase your income to accelerate your savings. And so we also need to begin to think, how can we increase our, in your personal situations, how can you increase your income? So is it changing jobs? Is it a side hustle? Is it starting a business? We all have our own personal talents and giftings, so you can think about how you can monetize that. And so, yes, plan and save ahead of an event, save whatever you can, increase your income to accelerate your saving. And this is what I say: save in restricted accounts, in accounts where you cannot remove your money. If you have access, 24-hour access to that money, you will never be able to save. And it's just the discipline. And places where you can save is in circles, credible circles. I know there's a friend of mine in the room here who deals with circles. So credible circles, money market funds. And again, I'm talking about credible money market funds, treasury bills and bonds. Those are places that you can put your money. I emphasize credible because I tell you, there are also other people who are out here in business of taking things away from people. And from these seasons of retrenchment, one of the things I was just trying to think about is, why do people not invest? Or why did I not invest before? Because we fear losing money. For example, in the stock exchange, volatility is viewed as potential for permanent loss. So you're like, huko ni bahati nasibu, huko ni bahati nasibu. So when we don't understand the stock market, then we just think, hizo mambo za bahati nasibu sitaingia. Then there's the fear of not being smart enough to invest. And sometimes I'm in some WhatsApp groups and I sit there and I just say, hey, this is so technical. Every day the guy is sending yield curves, you know? And I'm like, these yield curves, oh my God. And then the other day I just said, now that I'm in this place, I better sit down and study the NSC index and figure out how it works. But every one of us can learn. And let me tell you, if you can do 1 + 1 = 2, and 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2, then you are a candidate for investing. You can be an investor. And finally, we believe that investing requires a lot of money. Just the same principle as saving, wealth is built by starting small and investing consistently over time. And so, for investing, the important thing is financial literacy. Financial literacy is learning about how money works. It's so you get the knowledge, then the skills and the confidence. So think about your job or your career. You went to school, got the knowledge. Then now, as you went into your workplace, then there are these practical skills that you're gaining every single year as you work there. Then you become confident. You're confident to manage teams. You're confident to lead organizations. You're confident to represent people across the world. That is the same thing that financial literacy does. You get the knowledge, and the knowledge increases day by day by day, or month by month by month. Eventually, you start getting the skills. You understand, oh, to invest in the stock market, I just need to buy low and sell high. So you begin from there. Then eventually you realize, okay, I need to sort of go higher. You begin to say, okay, this investment is 10%, this other one is giving a return of 20%. Then you're like, oh, okay, let me try it out without the practice. Sometimes when I tell people about treasury bonds, they imagine that the government is going to steal their money. That is not the case. So you need to kind of learn these things. And then eventually, as you practice small things, as you practice saving in a money market fund, as you practice, as you say that every year I will purchase a bond, for example, or every quarter I will put this money aside, you then get the confidence because you start understanding the market. And there's so many avenues for financial literacy. You can read. There are blogs nowadays, there are all manner of influencers, and they provide some good information. There is news where you can get information. You can attend a session like this, and so it's for literacy. So I stop here and hand over back to Nick for any questions. But I hope that that brief session has been useful.
Yes, Tesha, thank you. And I can see quite some good reaction coming through. and just stay on call. Bernard Wari is saying very useful. I think from where I sit, it's a very practical, personal story. Lots of lessons. Again, very relatable. I'm sure if everybody here was given an opportunity to share their story, I would be here for the next God knows how long. You lost 800,000. I lost 900,000 in the same scenario, which was also a loan. But we're here to learn. Good people, Tesha has been very vulnerable enough to share with us her story. Probably you're seated there and you have a question or two that you'd like her to answer directly before we quickly move to the wrap-up session of what this is all about. Because I'm sure you're wondering, this good story, where does it lead to? How do we crystallize it into practical sessions and learnings that can make everybody probably be financial literate, not to make mistakes that have been made quite a bit, probably even by many of us, and probably sometimes even repeatedly. We can take 2 or 3 questions on chat, and I'll be able to read them out, just so that Tesha then can probably be able to quickly answer them through, just by way of driving in some points of clarification. And here's a quick one. Kat has already quickly asked a question, Tesha. How do you budget your daily expenditure? And I'm sure you can answer that quickly and in a brief way.
All right. So for daily expenditure, as I said, you begin. Budgeting, you begin by tracking your expenses. So you need to track your expenses for at least 3 months. And this is for you just to understand how you operate. Because if you don't track your expenses, you might think that you spent 10,000 on food, yet you actually spend 30 or 50,000 on food. So tracking your daily expenses then enables you to have an idea. And I say track for 3 months. Once you track for 3 months, you have an idea of this is what my daily expenditure, you'll have monthly. And so you can say, okay, the average for this is this much. And these are the places where I can adjust and I can, then this will be my determining budget. Another way is to get a budget template and just decide and say that this is how much I will spend on my groceries. This is how much I will spend on this, and this is how much I will spend on education, just different things. Then that becomes your guiding budget. And as you monitor it every day, you can then, adjust every month. You can basically monthly, you can be able to see, okay, this is my pattern of living.
All right. Thanks, Tesha. And I know we're probably waiting or looking forward to having something more practical that can make this budgeting seem less theoretical. And I'm sure that session is coming in a bit. Daisy here has asked, so can we be able to get a recording of this session so that we can listen and re-listen? Because indeed, this requires several takes of listening. I will answer that on behalf of Tesha. Daisy, the answer is yes. And that's why the session is being recorded. And this would be shared with you. Quite some good things coming through. What is this? I'm trying to get this. I'm trying to get to read all these comments that are coming in, but very interesting. There's a place where someone is asking, Tesha, is there a place where you offer sessions that relate to what you've talked about, that drives a little bit more in terms of financial literacy that an individual can probably sit in a session and take up? You can answer that quickly as I go through some of these comments and then read probably one more question. And I'm sure these are the questions that are coming through can be answered as you get us towards the wrap-up end of this session. Go ahead.
All right. Yes, there is a place, and I'll be talking about that shortly. So you can hold on for just a minute, then we will get to that section.
Thank you. Bernard is saying you have mentioned that there are many blogs and advisors that have emerged. Are all these credible and giving us sound counsel? We may need to find a way of identifying reliable financial advice online, because definitely the space has been invaded by quacks. Just a quick comment there, Tesha.
All right. I think what I would like to say is that if as Kenyans, we don't read. So reading is one of the places where we can begin, reading books, watching the news, spending time with people. Sometimes we've heard about popular courses, and there are also institutions that run these courses. So when we're in these spaces, then we are able to tell, I don't think this person is, we begin to say, I don't think this person is saying the truth. Then there are all these investment houses, the investment banks. They also give qualified, I mean, they give a lot of good advice. And so those are the first places that you should go to. Um, as opposed to saying, let me follow a particular blogger. It's important to combine this with knowledge or information from qualified professionals, from qualified organizations that are certified, then you will be comfortable. So, for example, if you want information about stocks, there's the Nairobi Stock Exchange. You can begin to interact with that. I know maybe the information from the Nairobi Stock Exchange might not be broken down properly, but at least you know this is the starting point. I can get to know which people are listed. The other thing is then they are qualified professionals, and that's why in this space they are certified financial analysts, they are certified public accountants, they are certified investment security professionals. So those are the people who then you need to be looking at their background and saying, what is this person's background? So I can be able to take the information. So ensuring that the person is certified is also, important so that then you're able to say, okay, this person knows they have the education, they have the practice, and they're guiding us in the right direction.
All right, Tesha. I know we have gone slightly ahead of what was our intended time, but I can see there's a lot of engagement on call. I'll probably just read two questions and combine them into one because I'm sure a lot more of what's coming is in the session that you're just going to walk us through even as you wrap up. A participant would just like to know what activities made you remain productive during the sabbatical period. And combining that with what Winfred Adhiambo is also asking is, so which funds are you currently using for monthly expenses? Are you probably then drawing from your investments? You could combine that, and then I will throw the session back at you to move forward with the remaining slides before we get to close. Over to you.
All right. So during the sabbat, you have to you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan before you get into the sabbatical period and say that during this sabbatical period, I want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm also taking this period. I left USAID in July of last year. I did work for another 4 months at another organization. But then I realized that I am in actually a sabbatical period. And so I said that now that I'm in this sabbatical period, I do have things that I've always wanted to do. For example, I am someone who is primarily creative, and I think you can see it coming through the slides. And so I said I want to do my art projects, my book projects. And so I have focused on that. But I have also wanted to say that I wanted this season to count for something so that by the end of this year, I am able to say that I used my time productively. And so I am channeling my energies into, you know, I'm channeling my energies into specific projects. I am also part of, I am in different groups. Um, I'm a Toastmaster, and that has kept me creative. I am the public relations officer for our Toastmasters Club, and I learn through that. I learn through the weekly interactions that we have, in the club. I sit in a finance and audit committee. And so participating in those committees, reviewing the accounts, now I have more time to, sort of do that. So I think it is to tap into our hobbies, to tap into our communities. I also now serve at church. Currently, I have had the opportunity to teach part of an 8-week program on stewardship. And so I am intentionally looking for places where I can, be productive. I also encourage myself as an introvert, I encourage myself to leave the house because it's important during that period to leave the house, to talk to friends, to meet people so that I am not 100% isolated. Winfred has asked a question about during this redundancy period, how I am surviving. And my journey, if you go back to the table that I shared or the pictorial, There was 2007, which was 2007 taught me how to budget. Then when we moved going into 2016, I was learning how to save. And between 2016 and 2025, I was learning how to invest. One of the things that I did during that season was to invest in long-term bonds and consistently invest in long-term bonds. That has helped me get almost a monthly return. Even if the bond was giving a return of 5,000 bob, um, cumulatively, it has come to something that is decent and that is able to keep me afloat. And one of the things about investing over a period of time, especially, and they say is it the seventh or eighth wonder of the world is compounding interest. It does a lot. It does a lot. And let me just go into probably let me go to the next session, but I hope Winfred and the other person who asked about how I dealt with my sabbatical period, I hope my responses have helped. I want to bring to you something a program that I designed called Financial Planning Sessions, or FPS. And FPS came about last year when I was having conversations with my sister, and but just, she just said, I don't know how I would handle a sabbatical period. Or no, not a sabbatical, but a retrenchment period. And I thought I had some ideas that I could share with her. And I said, let us have structured sessions where we just talk about money. And so for 8 weeks, we met and the sessions were professional. There was no talking about, children. There was no talking about new clothes. There was no talking about anything. It was purely sessions on money. And for me and her, we had 3-hour sessions during that time. And so came up with these financial planning sessions. That was between April and June of last year. In April, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I think she's in the room, Kevina. And Kevina, for many years, has told me, you need to teach, you need to teach. And she's given me opportunities to speak in some forums. And so when I told Kevina, okay, this is how it's progressing with my sister, she said, I also want to start. So we started with her in May. In fact, when I was just about to start, Kevina said, you've had an individual experience. Why don't you then have figure out a group experience, invite a few people. And so I invited a few people, and by the second week, I already had 9 students, and so I called a friend of mine to come in. And it was a pilot. And so what happened, it was a session that helped me just think through the curriculum. And I used that time, I spent a lot of time reading about finances. And because I have gone for many, many, many financial literacy classes, and coupled with my experience in finance, then I designed a program which I felt was not too which I really wanted, that someone who is not in finance can understand but excel in managing their own finances. And so this is what the program structure looks like, the financial planning sessions program structure. So getting started is really where we just break the ice and say, what is financial planning or financial literacy or financial education? And we break it down, and it's introductory. And we begin to talk about our goals and the budgeting process, and we have tools. So the way the program is structured is that every week there are assignments that inform the next class. And so that by the time you're coming to class, you do have a basic understanding, or you're not floating as we go through the session. Then there's financial behavior, which is about money, how we behave with money. And then there is debt management. This is one of my favorite topics. Week 5 is savings and investments. So from week 5, we do have a specialist an expert who comes and speaks on savings and investments. Week 6 is on protection plans. This is about insurance, retirement and estate planning. And for this year, last year, I was taking the session, but for this year, we do also have another expert who will be taking the session. Then money cannot just be for us. So we talk about giving, and in giving, we explore not just giving to God or giving to others, but giving to Caesar as well. Last year we had a physical session, so the program was supposed to be all virtual, but we closed with a physical session because some of the participants in the program I had not met. This year, the plan is to have an investment workshop where we'll have different specialists in the finance, legal, real estate, just come in and speak to the class participants. So this is what the program logistics look like. It's an 8-week hybrid class. Saturdays from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Last year, I think the class can attest that we were strict on time, logged in at 7:30, started at 7:35 promptly and ended at 9:30, with the exception of the savings and investments class, which went up to 10:30, and the last physical session, week 8. Then, as mentioned, we have weekly assignments that inform every single next class so that it is practical. And in these sessions, then we give you the tools. So if we are talking about debt management, then you have the tool to manage debt. If we are talking about budgeting, then you have an idea of how you can budget. For this year, we hope that the program will run between 6th of June and 25th of July. And the communication channels are via WhatsApp. We have a dedicated phone line and email. Now, I want to invite to the floor someone who we referred to as Index 1. That is Bernadette Omondi, just to share her testimonial. Bernadette, I saw you join in, and she was in the pilot class. And why we call Bernadette Index 1? The assignments are really simple, So one of them was just think about a business idea that you could implement. Bernadette wrote a 4-page document. Bernadette, karibu sana, and the floor is open for you.
Oh, thanks a lot, Stacia. Hi, everyone. Bernadette. So, I'm happy that you're starting the next one in June. I'm still thinking that I'd want to come into some of the lessons. So last year, I think for me, even as Stacia mentions, I also went through redundancy. I was part of the team that worked with a USAID contractor. So yes, it happened. And it happened. And I think when Tesha brought the question of whatever you have right now, like how long can it take for you to spend? There was nothing. Like there was no plan ahead. And I think this session came at the right time. So I think I was one of those people who was always afraid of sitting down to write down your debts and your expenses. And sometimes for the debts, you're usually afraid of sitting down to like think through them and now know that they're a problem and figure out how to do it much better. So I think the sessions, as Tesha says, the sessions had the lessons, but it's pretty simple, no complicated language. You understand it, it relates to you very simply. And so I was able to relate to each and every session. And the assignments were very crucial to help you sit down, sink in through the templates and start to think through your thoughts by yourself and start the planning session. I know even as Tesha was speaking, we're all like, saving, it's simple. I'll just sit down and figure out I need to do like 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. But it's a culture that you need to think through. So what I found interesting is that when you start the first session, sometimes you'll be like, okay, now I will need to be a different person with this one thing I've learned today, if it's debt management, for example. So, of course, sometimes you get a lot of psych when a lesson is over and you're like, I'm going to do this. And then you write down the assignment, The week goes by and you realize that, gosh, I've not even done a half of what I was meant to do. But the next lesson actually brings you back to what you had refused to do previously. So it brought a lot of growth to me, I would say. I'm now budgeting better. I used to budget, but it was not in a way of thinking through budget plus your expenses and consciously figuring out that you need to think this long term. It's not for now, but figure out if anything happens, are you covered? So I also loved the fact that Tesha brought in people in their professional space, especially in the saving and investment area, who took us through simple, practical ways on how to save. You know, for all of us, we usually think for you to save, you need 100,000. We actually went through a plan that shows you put 10 here, you put 5, you put whatever here, but the actual end term goal, you get a lot out of it, but you do not feel like you have to have a lot of money at the start. So it's pretty practical. I enjoyed each session. And I know I still go back to Tesha, like, Tesha, that guy who came to speak to us about investment, give me his contacts. When he spoke about tax, which was also important, like, figure out also how you're giving back to Caesar, not only through church, through your family, but also the fact that that session was also very good, giving back, because when giving back, ultimately, we always just think about the church, maybe. We never think consciously about how much we are giving back to family and relatives on a monthly basis. And as part of your expenses and planning, it is something that you need to think about, because as you start thinking through your expenses, you can find that in an entire month, you've given back to your family almost a high amount than what it's meant to be. So it was just trying to make us think consciously. Yes, we are allowed in this world, we are meant to be giving back in all places, but think through it. So the templates that are provided during the sessions are good. That's what I use to date. They have a budget template where you record your expenses, and I've been using it to date. I'm still working on the investment bit by bit, but I'm sure by December I'll be a different person in terms of how that has worked. But I would encourage anyone, if you've not been part of the session for the pilot, I think this is a class that needs to work for you, and it will change you for sure. And it will keep you always thinking, even in your lazy form, you're like, okay, I'm not going to do this, but you'll know something at the back of your mind that there needs to be change, and you need to do it. So Tesha, it's good. And actually, the way she speaks through it through her own personal experience also makes you feel like whatever you're going through is not different. We are all could be in debt. We are all not saving. We are all, yeah, anything can happen, space. So I think these sessions are the best in terms of making you get prepared for any eventualities. Thanks, Tesha, and I hope to be part of the next lessons as well.
Asante sana, Bernadette. We can give her some round of applause for just her open sharing. Thank you very much, Bernadette. All right. Last year, some things happened. So we had Zizi Binary, and I have seen Zizi Binary on call. I spoke to him at 4 a.m. this morning. I am so happy to see you. Zizi Binary is an organization by my brother. And so my brother created this website for me. I bugged him and and I really thank him. In fact, I hadn't seen this building, so he did some small edits. I am so happy. And you can go on to pennyworthconsult.com and just learn more about us. So we do have that website that has more information about who we are, what we do, what we can offer, and how you can partner with us. So again, that's another page just talking about the financial planning sessions and with more information. So after this class, please feel free, or after this session, please feel free to pass by the website and just see what we are about. Thank you so much, Ali. I really treasure what you've done. Last year, I was doing everything. This year, I have gotten a lot of support, and Betha is an administrator, and Betha is a good friend of mine coming in as an administrator, and on a full-time basis, she's actually an project support coordinator and an administrator. Nicolas Ombewa, I have known Nick for very many years. Nick is a learning solutions designer and workplace capability specialist, and he comes in as a program moderator. I just thank Nick because yesterday he looked at the presentation, reworked the presentation, and so we have worked on this presentation for the last 2 days. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you for moderating this session as well. Samuel Washinda Mwangi, he's a financial analyst, he's a senior wealth and investments manager, and he's also a board member on multiple nonprofits. He's not in the room today because he had some meetings. He facilitated the savings and investments session last year. We had such a powerful session. He will be back for this session as well and future sessions. Mbeche Ofafa, I must tell you the story about Mbeche. Because in 2020, I carried out a survey. I surveyed about 30 participants on their experience on COVID. Just it was called personal finance and the pandemic. Beche was one of the people I interviewed, and he was so passionate about stocks, and he was going on and on and on. That was in 2020. Fast forward to 2023, for 2023, I changed jobs. I didn't look at my portfolio. And then my portfolio, when I looked at it, it had dropped by 50%. I panicked because after you have been in the stock exchange for 10 years, then your portfolio drops by 50%. And you can't even come out, because if you come out now, you lose everything. So I called Mbeche. And he told me, Mbeche is the way he looks in that photo. He's like, no, you don't have to worry about these things. It's just a book loss. And he has helped me. He has turned around that portfolio, and I can only say that he is God sent. He's an amazing teacher, and he will be one of our panelists during the investment forum or investment workshop, which is on week 8. And we hope to have more panelists come in at that time. We do have Joseph Kimani. Joseph Kimani is a financial advisor. Specifically, his area is insurance and fund management firms. And so Joseph comes in to help us in the area of insurance, and he will be with us for week 6. So for the structure, we might tweak it a bit so that, when you come out of that program, you know you understand every area of investments. You understand SACCOs, you understand bonds, you understand simple and compound interest. That's what we intend to sort of do this year. Caroline Gotho, I thank Caroline because last year when I was doing the pilot class, I realized that there was, everyone was not a finance professional. And I was like, hey, I could be teaching my own things. So I asked Carol to come on board. Carol has followed my journey for many years, and we've exchanged notes on many things, investments. And so Carol is our program quality manager. She just ensures that, things are going as they are required. And then there's finally me. I think we had seen that. And so let me quickly go over the program registration. So this is our price, 20,000 shillings for the 8 weeks, including the conference. Last year we had a half-day workshop. This year we are still planning on it. If the logistics allow, then it will be sort of a full-day workshop. But we are still working on that, so half day, full day. So we are hoping to have that conference. Registration is via Google form, and Betha will be putting the link in the chat. So you can be able to see, it has all the details of the program, but if you're stuck, you can always call Betha, and there's an email address that you can write in. Once you register and make payment, then a pre-assessment survey will be shared upon confirmation, and the pre-assessment survey is really to help us know how we can help you. There's a special 48-hour offer, and we are giving a 2,500 discount on the full price if payment is made within 48 hours. So we are saying by Monday, if you make the payment, then you can pay 17,500 instead of the 20,000. So that is what we are offering. And so, yeah, this is what the registration form looks like. And I think Betha has put the link. Feel free to interact with it. And if you don't get it, we will also be able to share this with you in an email that will come at least 3 days after this session by Monday. That's what the pre-assessment survey looks like. There will also be a post-assessment, but for now, the pre-assessment survey, as mentioned, is designed to help us understand how best we can assist you in planning your finances, and your responses will allow us to tailor our support to your individual needs, and all responses will be kept confidential. So that is it. From my end, I don't know, Nick, whether there are any additional questions, but we can take a few more questions before we close the session.
Thanks, Tesha. I can see Bertha has raised her hand. Bertha, I don't know if you wanted to come in and just say something.
Yes, we have a question that has been
right.
shared in the comments twice.
Okay.
If there's provision to pay in installments.
Tesha, you want to take that?
Yes, I can take that. So there's a provision. So what will happen is that then you will pay the 20,000, and so we will allow you to pay 10,000 by end of May, and another 10,000 by probably mid June or end of June. But you can always write to us and tell us, this is how I would like to pay, and we can look at it.
All right. Thank you, Bertha, for driving our attention to that question on chat. We are the tail end, ladies and gentlemen. I can see Yusuf Mohammed there. I don't know if he has something to say, probably just to mute him for a minute there. But as we come to the tail end of this session, first of all, deeply humbled and honored that we've been able to stay on session from the time we logged in up to now, having extended by quite some bit of time. And so we do not take your patience for granted. I believe it's also because of the engaging nature of the session, largely making it very personal and very practical. And again, quite engaging because quite a number of questions have also been able to come through. And we are really, really glad that, yes, we've given you all the information you need to enable you quickly log in or sign in for the session. Maybe this could not be for you, could also be for a friend, could be for a relative who you know this is definitely going to drive a lot of impact for, and so you'd want them to come on board. The recording, of course, will also be shared with you, and you never know, you could also forward it to a person or two who you probably think would need to listen and then come in and sign up. We do not take your presence, therefore, for granted. From my end, as the moderator of this session, I just want to say thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Really looking forward to a fruitful engagement going forward. I'll just hand it over back to Tesha to close it with a vote or a word of thanks. Tesha, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who showed interest in this session. Thank you for logging in. Thank you for, sparing your Saturday morning. I hope that it has been worth your while, that it has been worth your time, and that it has been worth your penny. Thank you so much. Thank you for interacting with us. We'll definitely go back and just also interact with the chat and see what is there. I want to recognize the presence of my mother, the presence of my sister, the presence of my brother, who are in the room and have truly helped me through this journey. I recognize all the friends who have supported me through this sabbatical, through this redundancy season. Sometimes you can have a stash for your season, but you need people, you need community, you need people just to support you, because losing a job is, you've lost your identity and all. And finally, I just want to thank the team that have volunteered their time and energy. We have been spending a few hours together just brainstorming on this session. Thank you so much for your input. And hopefully this program will impact lives, change lives, bring hope, healing, and help that is needed. And finally, I just want to say that navigating the storms require prayer, they require patience, and they require practice. Before you deal with money issues, you need to deal with your heart. And if your heart is overwhelmed, speak to a professional, whether it's a counselor, whether it is a money professional, whether it's even a doctor, so that you can be able to ride the storm. Again, it's practice. You practice, practice, practice. They say Rome was not built in one day. And so I just encourage you, even if in fact, I say just work on one thing. If it's just getting out of debt, work out on that debt continuously. And when you work on that, you will build other skills which you do not know. So just again, going back to my journey, I was able to figure out budgeting, then go to saving, go to investing. And I think now I'm in a season where maybe I'm figuring out a new journey of entrepreneurship. And finally, it requires patience. Some of the things I talk about may seem simple, but there is power in patience. There is power in that discipline, the consistency, which creates momentum. You will definitely see results. And so I encourage you on your journey. And finally, I just say, interact with us. Interact with us via email. There's a website. Maybe some of the things we've mentioned here do not cover what you might specifically need. There is a contact form on the website where you can put information on what you specifically need, and we'll respond to you. And Betha is our administrator for this program, and so take that number. In fact, let me pause there for a moment so that you can write her number, which is 0707 185 540. I repeat, 0707 185 540, and you can reach Betha and she will be able to assist you. And then that is our postal address. Yes, tuko na postal address. I think I just want to mention that we are registered as a limited company, and so those are our details. So from the Pennyworth team, this was the pilot class. This was our physical session last year, 23rd of June. Just 2 days before my birthday. Very exciting session. I just want to say asanteni sana for being here, and we officially close the session. Thank you so much.